If we expect only one record, we have something called as single and SingleOrDefault. When we use single, like firstOrDefault, we can pass condition right here. So we can say u goes to u.bookid is equal to 1002. Now when we work with single here, it always returns one book that you can see. But with single, we can filter on any column. If I go back to the database here, we have the ISBN. I can use that as well. Let me show that. So if I say ISBN is equal to, let me add that in a string here and execute this. Perfect. If we go back, you can see the select statement here and we retrieve the book correctly. But there is something weird that you notice here. It is actually doing select top 2. Now we know single will always return one record, so why is there select top 2? Let me explain that by going back to SQL Server. Here we have publisher ID 3 and we have 2 records. Let me filter on that. So we will say publisher ID is equal to 3. Let me use firstOrDefault here and see what happens first. So in firstOrDefault, we have the select top 1 and it returns the record. We know that with publisher ID 3, there are 2 records that it will return, and firstOrDefault only retrieves the first record. Now if we change that to single here and execute, you will notice something different. It executes the select top 2 here, but when we see the debugging point, it throws an exception. When you see the message here, it is sequence contains more than one element. So single basically only expects one element, and if more than one element are returned, then it throws an exception. That is the reason it is trying to find select top 2. If it finds 2 records, that means that there is an exception. Single should always return only one record. That is the main difference between single and firstOrDefault. In firstOrDefault, whatever condition you have, if it returns 10 records, it will select the first one and return back. When you are using single or SingleOrDefault, if more than one records are returned, it will throw an exception. Then you might be asking, what is the difference between single and SingleOrDefault? That is the same. Single will throw an exception if, let's say, you have publisher ID of 66. That does not exist. So if no records are found, single will throw an exception. You can see sequence contains no element. And if we are using SingleOrDefault, that will return null if no records are found. Perfect. You can see here book was null. We were logging that. That's why we see this exception, but SingleOrDefault executed successfully. So with that, I hope you understood the difference between SingleOrDefault and firstOrDefault.